drive by on 12-year-old me and just quickly pass by and said, "Hey, buddy, you're still gonna be playing video games when you're 25 years old," I'd be like, "Fuck, am I a loser or what's going on?" Because video games when we were kids were considered like the most brain rotted thing that you could be doing with your time, right? And there was honestly some truth there. Back then, gaming was the antisocial behavior. Even if, we knew it wasn't antisocial, we were in party chats with the boys, dying laughing. From a public perspective, if you were gaming, you were neglecting the healthier options, right? You could be talking to your family, talking to your friends at the park, reading a book. Being in your room staring at a screen was like the worst thing that you could be doing. But that was a whole different world than the one that we're in today. Today, everyone's scrolling, swiping, and tweaking on social media, right? The constant flow of content has made staring at a screen all day the norm, right? The same people who would give video games a hard time are probably algorithmic junkies with higher screen times now, right? So it creates a question. Is gaming as an adult a healthy habit, or is it a big waste of time for big fat pathetic losers? I don't know why I said that. But let's get into it. So, right off the bat, this might confuse people because, in a way, this is a gaming channel. But I can't sit here and say that gaming is this perfect hobby for every adult to have, that fits in perfectly to every lifestyle, because I'd be lying. Just like anything else, gaming provides an escape, right? The same can be said about books, movies, TV shows. But what's different with video games is that most of them are designed around feedback loops. So this is where people start to get lost in the sauce a little bit, because if your reality sucks, the game will still reward you and nothing else will. The short-term gratification that you can get from video games can be lethal for someone that's not getting any long-term gratification out of their life, right? The brain is just a sponge, and the way that the modern games are designed, and just games in general have been designed for years, leveling up, unlocking shit, these are all accomplishments, right? And if you're in a bad spot in life, it's harder to realize that none of these accomplishments, in quotes, none of these unlocks, none of it is doing anything for you. When you're a kid, it doesn't need to do anything for you. You're just a kid. Everything in life is so new. You have no worries, no responsibilities. You have unlimited time. You're just having fun. But when you become an adult, things change. And you might say, okay, well, I have one life. I'm going to spend it doing the things that I enjoy doing. That was a big argument on my Be Careful with GTA 6 video from a couple months ago. And I get that. It makes sense, right? Life is too short to not enjoy it. But a crackhead enjoys doing crack, right? That's the big flaw in the argument. Is like, I used to enjoy smoking weed all day, and that made me a loser. So just because I enjoy doing it, that doesn't mean that it's good for me. That doesn't mean that it can't be abused and that you can overdo it. And there's a time and place to play video games in a healthy life. I do believe that, and I'm going to get to that. I'm not on that Andrew Tate shit that's like, you don't have your 5 drop shipping businesses set up and you're playing video games at night? Like, are you a fucking loser? Like, that's ridiculous. There's balance to everything. What I'm trying to say here is, like, video games make it easy to escape reality. So if you're a person that's not happy with your reality and you enjoy playing video games, there's a chance that it might be problematic. And just to be clear here, I'm speaking from experience, right? So back to COVID 2020, a much younger and much more fried Paulie Walnuts didn't really understand the whole short versus long-term gratification thing, we can say. I was just trying to get through my days, and it didn't matter how.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
As long as one of the bros was on Fortnite or Warzone, and I had a cart, I was good for the day, right? I could sit there for hours just cracking domes on Fortnite. Nobody was fucking with me on Fortnite, let me just say that. But at the same time, nobody was fucking with me in real life because I was a loser, right? And video games weren't helping that. And on top of that, weed and video games are a dangerous combo. I just want to say this because if you're fried enough, you can forget that you're not doing shit with your life. Your dopamine levels can be, so artificially blasted that you don't even care. You're just having fun and you can't see forward. I couldn't see like a path forward, right? This was also the time I came up with the genius idea to grind every single camo in COD, to get the mastery one. It took fucking hours and hours of real time just for me to get it and be like, wow, I am such a dweeb. What am I doing with my life? Looking back, it's obviously crazy that I didn't realize it. It's like, damn, I have one chance at life and I'm sitting here investing hours and hours into this camo on this game that I will never play in the future. But that's the side of gaming that I'm talking about. That's the side that's unhealthy. Like, now obviously it seems ridiculous, but back then, like I said, I couldn't see a path forward. There's nothing to work towards. The truth is, if your current life sucks, it's a lot easier to turn on the game than it is to deal with the things that are making your life suck. And that's just a fact. Like, man, in 2020, if someone had just like pulled up on me, slapped the shit out of me, and was like, yo, bro, what are you doing right now? Just sit with your thoughts for 10 minutes and ask yourself, just look around and ask yourself if you're happy with what you're doing with your days right now. I think that would have been all I needed to hear. If you're going through something similar right now, my advice to you would be, well, first, stop smoking if you smoke, because, that'll increase your chances of being like, what am I doing with my life? But if that's not the case, just, if you don't need to beat yourself up about it, right? Everything happens for a reason, but just like look around and sit with your thoughts for a second, right? I feel like that's kind of the first step after realizing it, because you've already realized it. This self-help culture that we have right now doesn't exactly help, because, you'll see gurus. They're like, oh, do you have your 10 income streams, your online businesses that will make you $1 million? Do you have those set up yet? And you're playing video games? You're a fucking loser. Like, no, that's an extreme, right? I think a better metric will always be like, are you happy with what you did today and where you're headed tomorrow? At this point in my life, I was technically an adult, right? I was 20. So this is why I can't say that video games are always going to be healthy. Like, they weren't the root of the problem, right? But they definitely weren't fucking helping the problem either. So we covered the nasty shit, right? The nasty part of gaming. But now I want to talk about how it can actually be a positive, where it can actually be healthy for an adult, and especially right now. As you already know, it's easy to have a shit relationship with gaming, especially if you're down bad, and you're in a bad spot, as you just heard from my own experience. But now, gratefully, I'm in a better spot, that's mentally, physically, shit, fucking spiritually, than I was back in 2020. And I still play video games. The difference is I'm not ignoring my problems. I'm not escaping my life anymore. I'm just pausing that bitch for a second to relax, right? This is where gaming is great. I know in these videos you guys usually see me ripping the old school CODs, and I do enjoy recording the gameplay, but you got to admit I'd be a maniac if I was just gaming, decade plus old games in my free time. I use that for the background in my videos because it's fun to watch. It reminds me and you of simpler times. But if I do get time to game now, I'm usually playing single player games. I almost want to compare it to like reading a book, except you're moving around, you're controlling the story, you're controlling the characters, and I love that shit. I have a new appreciation for these kinds of games because they stimulate me just enough, where I have to focus on them, but never too much to where my brain feels overwhelmed. So that small amount of focus, that allows me to tune out noise that's constantly being thrown at me from every direction all day. So when I do find that time to chip away at the game, I'm grateful for it. With our phones, we've gotten so used to scrolling and TikTok and Instagram and just short form content. All that stuff does is play with your emotions. And I've talked about this before, but when you zone out and scroll, the things that are being shown to you are being shown to you because they evoke emotions. Whether that's happy emotions, sad emotions, motivational, depressing, it doesn't matter. Funny, it doesn't matter what emotion it is. It's just being shown to you because it evokes something. So if you're just zoning out scrolling, you're just scrolling through emotional states. And that's why when you're done, you don't even realize what you just did for the past hour. With video games, at least you're sitting there, you're focused focusing on one thing, and it's not manipulating your emotions, right? The way that I game now is unironically healthier for my brain than using my phone. It's the same reason that I came to love reading, that focus. How many times in today's world do we get to just focus on one thing, right? It's becoming less and less common because there's always a million notifications. We're always listening to something while doing something else, or talking to someone but thinking about something else. When I game now, it's like almost meditative because just one thing has my undivided attention. It might sound dumb, but I don't know. I don't take this kind of thing for granted in today's world. And I don't know about you guys, but deep down, I just get this feeling when something's either good or bad for me, So reading, working out, meditating, journaling, these are things that I can just feel are good for me when I do them, right? I don't need someone to tell me that. Then on the other side of the spectrum, drinking, scrolling, social media, staying up too late, like what else is there? Like letting negative YouTube comments get to me. Like these are the things that I can tell are bad for me, right? I can feel them chipping away at me almost. The way that I game these days feels a lot closer to that first list than that second one. And if you do need science, I looked it up. There was a study that showed an increase in gray matter in people who play video games. But my guess would be that that same study wouldn't show that increase if it was looking at people who are, grinding camos while also listening to a podcast, while also scrolling on TikTok, all at the same time. Back to those two lists I had mentioned, that type of gaming feels like, it's chipping away at you. And I just want to mention some